No, I came back to England. I was born in Hong Kong, came back to England within 6 months of being born. So I don't have any recollection at all, so it's a shame. But I did go back there twice, but of course I don't remember. I had loads of photographs growing up in a box, and my mum would tell me stories, but no, don't remember anything. Me and my brother were always messing around with music when we were kids, and I tried piano, I tried guitar, and he was playing. We started playing the same year. He started playing guitar and I started playing drums, but I did actually finally get a drum kit because I could join his band. I wanted to join his band, and I asked to join his band. He said yes. So then I got my mum to buy me a drum kit, you know. But I was thinking about drums for a long time. I wanted to play drums for a long time. But yeah, I joined his band. Yeah. Yeah. I went to London. I mean, the reason I started studying classical music when I was about 18, 19, because I wanted to be a serious musician. That's what I had in my head. And also I could see that if I went to music college I could get off the Isle of Wight and go to London and could be in London. And I had a fantastic, I did these what they call summer seasons on the Isle of Wight. I was you know the word holiday camp. I mean, we had these summer seasons. I have a holiday camp. All these people come down. They have a holiday. There's a band, and I played 3 of those. I played those 3 years. I played this in the summer. And the first summer season, I met this incredible musician, Bob Howarth, who got hold of me and then sat me down in front of a piano and said, "You're going to study piano." And he's the one that really helped me get off the Isle of Wight. And I went to the Royal Academy of Music within 2 years of starting piano, because I just wanted to have a future and I wanted to get off the Isle of Wight. There was no future on the Isle of Wight for musicians. My brother and Mark King, who played bass in Level 42, we all left at the same time from the Isle of Wight, but I left to go to music college. And studying classical music was a huge inspiration for everything in music, because it was just all the ideas about musicality and tone and beat placement and timing. You can apply that to any kind of music, you know, the idea of being musical at all times, and I think it was a great time. I only did 2 years at the Royal Academy because I was never going to be a classical percussionist. There's no way I could compete with those guys that had been playing percussion since they were 5. You know, I'd only had 2 lessons on timps when I went to the Royal Academy. But the thing was, I was in London, I was studying, I was meeting musicians, and then within 2 years I formed a band, and I left anyway. But yeah, I'm so glad I had that experience. Yeah, I met Mark on the Isle of Wight. I heard about this. I grew up on the south side of the Isle of Wight, and I heard about this young kid who was about 18 months younger than me. So when I was 17, he was just, 15. So but he lived on the north side, so there was a rumour about this kid, a really annoying kid that was really, really good. And then when I was 18, I had a band, and he came and sat in. So we had 2 drummers, and he kind of blew me off because he had he'd been playing since he was like 5, you know. I'd been playing a couple of years, so he had a lot more technique, which is really annoying. And but we became really good friends, and we used to drive around the Isle of Wight in his car, because Mark was always, when he was 17 he had a car. I didn't have a car till I was 26, I think. And like he was always like, he had like a cartridge player in his car, so we would listen to Mar Vishnu Orchestra or Chameleon or Headhunters by Herbie Hancock. So we drive around the Isle of Wight planning our escape from the island, and we were very, very close, and we had a musical connection. But the problem was, although I was playing a bit of piano and he was playing guitar, he was really a drummer. So at that time, although we were playing in bands, we didn't see that we would have a future together, because he was going to be a drummer and I was really going to be a drummer. But like as I think in 1976 we did a Greenpeace benefit concert with a local singer, and Boone played bass on one track, and then Mark played guitar, and then they swapped, and Mark played bass and Boone, my brother, played guitar, and that was the first time we played together, the 3 of us. And as soon as we got to London we started jamming, but even when we got to London we thought we were going to go off and do our various things, but when we got to London we realised that there just wasn't anybody else. We didn't meet anybody that we had the same connection with, so we came back together and started playing. And as Mark got better on the bass, it seemed more obvious that he should play the bass, my piano playing was never as good as his bass playing, so I played drums and he played bass. Yeah, but we started playing, yeah, from that age, from 18, 17, 18 onwards. Yeah. It worked in a number of ways. It maybe in the early days, Mark might have an instrumental which he wrote himself, or we would say on the first proper album that we did with Polydor Records, the big label, was called Level 42, and maybe Wally would have a riff, and then we the band would put top lines on it or chord changes, and oftentimes, I mean, like say there's a song called Turn It On, which is on the first record. That riff was written by Wally and Mark, and then I wrote the post-chorus. Don't turn it up. I wrote these chords, and then we put a melody on it. So we're all chipping in, you know, and wherever there was a credit, it was usually everybody was involved in the music. My brother and I wrote the lyrics mainly. Mike used to write some lyrics, but I wrote a lot of the lyrics. But it depended. Sometimes it'd be me, Mark and Wally, sometimes me and Mark. Like Love Games was me and Mark. Other times it'd be like me, Mark, my brother, and you know, it was all combinations of people. So, and Wally Baderu was really important to Level 42, because not just because of his synth sounds. In Level 42, Mike Lindup did all the pianos and the Rhodes and the pianos, and Wally did all the synth stuff. So that was an incredible soundscape artist to have on your team. But Wally also co-wrote a lot of the very important tracks for us, and there's an instrumental called Heathrow on the first record, and that's Wally Baderu, that's a Wally Baderu creation, you know. So we were incredibly, so really Level 42 was always 5 people, you know, it was never just the 4 people on stage, it was Wally Baderu, and it was a great team, and a very interesting team, because you have like 3 people from the Isle of Wight. There's Mike Lindup's from London, but one of his parents is from Belize in West Indies, and then you have Wally Baderu, who comes from Africa, who has now moved to Paris. So there's a very interesting sensibility in the whole thing, and we were all drawn together by our love of James Brown, Stevie Wonder, you know, rock music, you know, Yes, you know, Genesis, Mahavishnu Orchestra, you know, Joni Mitchell, whatever. We were all brought together by, although we from different parts of the world, we're brought together by the music of the time, Weather Report, Herbie Hancock. So yeah, it was great. We were very fortunate to find each other. We were very lucky how it unfolded like that. Well, you know, bands have a life, and I think by the time we got to the last album that I was involved in the 80s, we ran out of our time. And you know, people have different agendas as to why they do things, and my feeling at the end was that I didn't want to make music that was that just commercially driven. I didn't think we needed to do it. I thought we were going to be successful enough anyway by making music in a more soulful way, which we had up to that time. But when we did Running the Family, we had a lot of sequences, and we had these click tracks, and we were playing along to computers on stage, and it just got really boring. And we were touring non-stop. I think we were working 3 years flat out, and I got very ill actually, and my brother got very ill. And in fact, really, the main reason why we actually left the road at that time was that we were ill, me and my brother. But I had already said to the band I would leave at the end of the year, and I left in October, so I was going to leave. But it was just crazy, the workload that we were under. And really, you know, we didn't have to do that. But the thing is, like I spoke to Ken Scott, who produced our 4th record, which he produced the True Colours album. His take on it was that, like, you know, there are so many bands in this world that never get to make a record, or they never get past the first record, or they split up after 2 albums. That we did 7 albums together, and we were together for that time. And I left at the age of 30, and I'd been playing with my brother since I was 15. So that's half my life. That's you know, you either need a break or you have to do something else. So it was time to do something else. And yeah, but I was very proud of what we achieved. I wasn't happy with the last record that I did. I think it was very commercially driven, but there were some good songs on it, and a lot of people would love that record. So, you know, I put my heart and soul into it as best I could. But that's the reason why I left. No, not in the early Level 42 in the early days. When we recorded the album, we were a lot calmer than we were on stage. So when played live, our tempos were always a lot faster. When you hear some of those early recordings, the tempos are just ridiculous. I don't think we used to speed up. I think we were really solid as a band, and we had a pocket, but we were always a lot faster on stage. And in some ways I liked that, because there was a whole thing in the 70s where bands were reproducing their records live, and people would go to concerts like Supertramp, and they would go like, God, it sounds just like the record, and they would go, well, that's amazing. And I was thinking, well, I want to hear a live performance. I don't want to go hear the record, So we were almost like a rock band on stage. We was very intense, very loud, just overplaying, going mad, and the records were maybe a little bit more restrained and more, I don't know, laid back, But I like that. That's why I like seeing someone like Prince live, because Prince's live performances are he always cuts the tunes up and rearranges things, and it's a real live performance. If I want to listen to the record, I'll stay at home, But I think with Level 42, as we got more used to performing and more professional, I guess, and we were playing on stage all the time, that we would probably have less nervous energy, and we would probably play records at a tempo closer to the album. And also later, towards the end of my time, we were using a lot of sequences anyway, so of course it's exact same tempo. But I don't like drummers. I don't like musicians that slow down. Slowing down is a criminal thing to do. Speeding up is okay some of the time, and some music needs a drummer to push, like police music. It doesn't work if you've got a really solid. It needs Stewart to go, to be pushing it and sort of speeding up in a way, but really on top. Some music works like that, and I think it's important that the energy is, the energy you're putting out as a musician is right for the music, I don't get asked to do many sessions really, but I'm doing my own thing, and I have the Bongo Saloon project, which I'm trying to find a name for that, so it's not me anymore. And what we plan to do with that project is to really focus on the improvisation. Having two drummers on stage is like being Ash Sohn and Carl Brazil's had a play, and Jeremy Stacey, and you have a percussionist, and you have two keyboard players. It's quite a thing to organise, and it's a fantastic group of musicians. So I'm trying to make that one of the major projects for the winter, so by next year we can be playing as a live band, and we have like a lot of songs as well, but I think we'll be more instrumental project. And for my own thing, I have another album I'm doing for myself, and I'm forming a band, and I will this time, because I now live in London. Now I put out a record. I put out an album 5 years ago, and it was not backed up by live performance. In this day and age, if you don't play live, you're in trouble really. So like, I have a really good situation. I have a publishing company I work with, so as a body of work, the new album will also be songs that they can use and maybe soundtracks or get covers on. But I'm still making an album for myself, like in the traditional way. But this year I'll put together a band to play gigs around town, and hopefully do gigs in Europe and see what we can do. I really have enjoyed playing live again. I'm actually playing with quite a few different musicians in England, moving around. I even played in Germany with Gregor Mailer recently, this great singer-songwriter, and I'm really enjoying the idea of just being a drummer again. Like not being a singer-songwriter who plays drums, but just going playing drums for people, and it's fantastic. And it's very physical, and it's really very zen. It's like a Buddhist thing where you just give out all this energy. So I've kind of realised over recent years really how much I've missed that. But it's not easy to say. I lived in Dorset and I came back to London 4 years ago. It's not easy to say, right, let's go and do some tours. You have to build up your position again. I'm meeting great musicians, and now I'm starting to be offered things. And if somebody offered me a tour, I would say yes, I think, because I wouldn't. 2 years ago I would have said absolutely not. But now I feel that playing drums regularly for weeks would be fantastic, So yeah, I'm really enjoying that. Well, like everywhere, the music business is so different now, and it's so lacking. I mean, the problem we have with illegal piracy and the streaming services, Spotify, the musicians aren't making money, so there just isn't the money like a band like Level 42 would never get signed now, and if we got signed, we would get signed to a single deal or an album deal. We were signed to a 5-album deal in the 80s because they had the money to do it, and it wasn't expensive. We could make records, and they know we make our money back, and then we go on the road and we develop, and over a period of time, after 3 albums, we learn how to write songs, you know. But like now, it's really hard for young musicians to get beyond, if they get a chance to make a record at all, to actually get beyond one record. So I really feel for a lot of young musicians, because it's, you know, it seems to people still want music in their lives, but they're not prepared to pay for it, and they don't seem to understand that without money coming into the system, the business, you can't fund new work, you know. So it's a shame. I think there's a lot of opportunities online for young musicians to produce their music, but there's so much rubbish on the internet that, you know, it's hard to. I mean, it's still word of mouth. People will tell you about a great record, and then you'll go and find that great record. And I don't know where it's really heading. I know the future of music is not streaming. Some friends of mine have just created a music app for a Norwegian singer called Jarle Bernhoft. And I think that's probably the future of music, where you just become, you release music yourself, you release an app, you sell your app to people online, you go and play live, and you forget the industry completely. You forget record companies, you forget iTunes, you forget Spotify, you forget everybody else, and just interact with your audience directly, and become a cottage industry. I don't know what the answer is. I know there's still a lot of great music around, so it's just a shame that people aren't being paid properly. It feels like a good community in England. I think there is a good feeling, and I think that's probably true of musicians everywhere. Though there's also some, you know, competition, but like with Carl, particularly with Carl Brazil and Jeremy Stacey and Ash Sohn, those 3 guys have really got a hold of me since I come back to London, and given me some encouragement to become, you know, get behind the drums again. And like they were also inspired by what Level 42 did in the 80s. They grew up with that music. And I'm really proud of the fact that, you know, that there was an English band that was kind of groovy and funky that they latched onto, that meant something to them, you know. And Jeremy, and particularly Ash, because Ash is, you know, he's given me a lot of his gigs, Ash Stone, you know, and they've really helped me, you know. So I'm very proud to have inspired those guys, or to be part of, you know, they've been inspired by a lot of people, but at least be part of their musical background. And yeah, Carl's been great, because he's been, I think his uncle Steve was a huge Level 42 fan, so he just rammed Level 42 down his throat as a kid, and luckily it was something that inspired him. But those guys have really gone on. I mean they're all amazing groovers, you know, great pocket players. Ash is an amazing groove drummer, and Jeremy's one of the finest drummers we've had, because he can play any kind of style, you know. So there is a great feeling amongst musicians, and I think there's all these other drummers, like, you know, there's Mark Fletcher, who plays the house drum at Ronnie Scott's, there's Ralph Sammons, there's all different types of drummers in England, Neil Wilkinson, and they all kind of they all have really, you know, Gavin Harris and people like that, they all have a lot to say. So it's kind of interesting. And when I go to Germany as well, when I meet these musicians in Germany or Italy, what's interesting about these times that we live in now is that groove and pocket seem to be a universal concept. You find, if you go to Cologne, you find amazing musicians who've got great feel, you know, and in England, you know, essentially what we're playing is American-inspired music with time and feel, you know, groove, funk-inspired music, or country-inspired music, soul, rock and roll. But there's that now feel is universal. Because in the 80s, if I went to Amsterdam, I wouldn't necessarily find very funky musicians, you know. It may be the same in Rome, but now you do, you know. Like in Paris, a year ago, I found these amazing groove drummers, you know, amazing improvisers. So it's funny how that idea of music is now spread out. So in the late 70s and the early 80s, it was taking hold, but now a whole generation of musicians have grown up all across the world, in Australia, who have great time and great groove and funk and improvising. So it's interesting to see now how things have changed. There's so many great drummers in the world now, there's so many great players, it's crazy. Yes, it does. I still have the yellow drum kit, and I'll never part with it. I went all around the world with that drum kit. It started off as a maple Tama Superstar kit, and it was the first. When we got our first publishing deal, Mark, we all went to the West End of London, and we went into these music shops. And Mike bought a Fender Rhodes, and my brother bought a Gibson and an amp, and Mark got hold of his first JD bass that was on the wall, and I got this Tama kit. And after a few years, I painted it yellow. Yeah, it's great. It has a great sound, that thing. Except the kick was never that great. I eventually replaced the kick with a Gretsch kick, but the toms are fantastic, you know. And now I have a deal with Sakai, so this incredible new Japanese company that were once involved with Yamaha. So it's a very different sound, but the drums are amazing. And now modern drums have this incredible projection that comes right back at you. Even though these trilogies, the Sakai trilogies, are designed to be like vintage drums, the sound you get back at you on stage is incredible. I think the main thing is that young drummers should play a harmonic instrument, you know, and you should. I think all musicians should think. I know it sounds a bit pretentious, but you think of yourself as an artist. Don't think of yourself as a drummer, a guitarist. So if you think of yourself as an artist, then the whole creative world, the whole world of creativity is open to you. Like, you might even come up with a concept for an album cover. You know, you might do a drawing that becomes an album cover. You might write some lyrics. As an artist, you might produce or get behind the mixing desk and try and come up with some sounds. You know, if you say to yourself, I am a drummer and I don't write lyrics, I don't play the piano, then you're just narrowing your possibilities. You know, so all the musicians that I've met that have been inspired me. Like Omar Hakim can play some keyboard. He composes some songs for Weather Report. You know. My first drum hero was Dave Mattix in a band called Fairport Convention, and I remember when I was 15 looking at the album cover, and it said on the album cover, Dave plays drums, he's playing Fender Rhodes on a track, and I was going, well, hang, he plays keyboards as well. I thought that was really interesting. So I just think it's important that, not only from the point of creativity, but important from the point of view of having a life as a musician in the modern world, that you have to, particularly if you're in a band, you should be involved in writing the songs, because then you might have a future. Like, I still get royalties because I wrote a lot of the songs at Level 42. So like, it's not just an artistic thing, it's also a sensible career move to be involved in the creative process in every way, whether that's as a producer, as a songwriter. And if you're a producer, how can you possibly produce an artist if you have no relation to the lyrics? You must read the lyrics and be interested in what they're about, you know. And don't say to yourself, oh, I don't write lyrics because I can't write lyrics. How do you know until you tried? Level 42 was a band that came about in a kind of strange way, and we were going to write lyrics. Me and my brother put our hands up, said, yeah, I'll write some lyrics. And then all of a sudden, and some of the early lyrics we wrote were terrible. They were horrendous. Like, The Chinese Way is one of the most embarrassing pop lyrics of all time. Some terror. But then you get better, and you work really hard, and you get better at it, you know. So I think it's important as particularly young drummers, because obviously if you're a guitarist, you're already involved in the musical process. Particularly with drummers, you don't have to, but I would advise playing a harmonic instrument, and obviously the piano is the easiest, and learning some chords and getting involved in the discussion that takes place in the band. And even if you don't play a keyboard, you can still sing a riff or sing a melody to this lead singer. Try and sing this, and if they don't listen to you, then stand up and shout at them until they listen to you. You know. And I think that's the key advice I give to any young musician, is to really try and get as involved as possible in every aspect of music making. And that's why when I do these clinics now, either on my own or with Ash, I play to my own backing tracks, my own songs. I'm trying to put that message across to young musicians. There's a lot of drummers in the world can do far more things technically, but I'm playing my own songs, and I wrote all that stuff, and I programmed it, I produced it, I helped mix it. And I think that's the message I'm trying to say when I go out and do these things, that's something that people shouldn't think is beyond them. Because I was 15 once, I couldn't play an instrument, and then I was in a band and I'd never written a song before, and then I started to do it. You're not born into this world being able to do these things. You develop these skills, but it's having the will to do it, and saying yes to any opportunity that presents itself. If somebody says, do you know anybody who can write some lyrics? You say, yeah, I'll have a go. To put your hand up and try, you know, and then You never know, you might find you're really good at it, or you think you really enjoy doing it. So that's my little lecture.